World of Warcraft Classic has a total of 9 different classes to play, which all have their own unique playstyle. I personally like Warrior because my favourite thing to do in this game is charge face first into any mob that I see, and of course get absolutely rolled in PvP. However, a couple weeks back, I decided to start a new character on a new class for a couple of different reasons. Firstly, so that I can experience the game all over again, but from a completely different point of view. Secondly, I want to use this character to make gold, because as a warrior main, I don't really have many options for gold making outside of maybe doing professions. Since starting my mage character, I've mainly focused on learning how to control mobs properly. Learning AoE farming was the first step, and last time I took on my hardest World of Warcraft Classic challenge yet, the Zul'Farrak Graveyard Farm, which is completely different from anything I had done in World of Warcraft before. And although it did take me a couple hours to get used to it, we still managed to master this farm, I think. And the rewards for doing so were absolutely crazy, racking up over 400 gold and skyrocketing my XP, making me go from level 42 all the way to 54 in the span of 2 days. And towards the end of my farming spree, people kept telling me, just wait until you're able to do the Sunken Temple farm. But I can't imagine a farm being more crazy for XP than this one, right? So let's find out. Starting off the day, we could actually go straight to Sunken Temple and start grinding. However, I've been using the same crappy gear for a while now, so I wanted to see if I could maybe get some upgrades by doing a Blackrock Depths run. So I started running around, gathering all of the quests that I possibly could, and that got me thinking a little bit. I actually haven't done a single quest on this character since level 10, and it did take a little while, but we eventually found a group for a full Blackrock Depths run. Now normally when you do Blackrock Depths, it's just arena and anger runs, so it's nice to actually get to explore the rest of the dungeon every now and then. We start by clearing out a nice chunk of the center area and move down one of the many hallways to kill the first boss, who dropped the Sprite Caster Cape, which would actually be a very nice upgrade for me. We then make our way down this back part, which I've never seen before, to kill a boss that I didn't even know existed. And I also didn't have the kill quest for him, which is a shame, but whatever. We then headed to do the best part of the entire dungeon, the Ring of Law, or Arena as it's affectionately known. Something about the rush of this part is amazing, eagerly staring at that gate waiting to see if the boss you want is going to spawn. For us, we want Okthor the Breaker, because he can drop the Banthok Sash, one of the best pieces of gear I could possibly get. A reasonable amount of stamina and intellect, increased chance to hit with spells, and increasing spell power. What is there not to like about this piece of gear? Unfortunately though, we got Anub Shia, so maybe we come back later and try to farm it out. Skipping over Anger for now, we headed down the back side of Arena to kill Pyromancer Lorgrain, who actually can drop a pretty nice staff, but you know how my loot luck goes. Next we head on over to Warder Stilgis, and he's a pretty interesting one because of the shoulders that he can drop. They are by no means pre-bis like the Banthok Sash, but getting this would be absolutely huge, especially for the farm that we are about to do. And luckily for me, we actually do get it, which is massive. Sadly though, we didn't have enough keys to open up the coffers and awaken the golems, so we had to skip that part. We then head deeper into Blackrock Depths, killing a lot of golems as we go to kill Phineas Darkfire, dropping a very nice leg piece that the healer didn't need. We then kill Lord Incendius, and normally when I've done full Blackrock Depths runs, this is where we would finish. But then I remembered we haven't even done Anger or Golem yet, so we head over there to kill Anger. And although I don't need Hand of Justice, I still hope it drops for whoever does need it. We then carefully clear the next room and eventually get to Golem. Now Golem can drop the Omnicast boots, a very good pair of boots for us, and again, we do actually get it. Now at this point I was thinking we were definitely definitely done now. I mean, there's no other part to this dungeon, right? And that's when we started going down a hallway that I didn't even know existed into a room that I didn't know existed. So the entire time I've been farming Blackrock Depths on my warrior, there was an entire section of the dungeon that I didn't even know about. I swear, right when you think you know everything, this game comes in with something new every time. This was a pretty strange area though. It was like a dark iron dwarf bar with loads of drunk dark iron dwarves. We then headed down into this scary looking room to kill a small fire boss that spawns loads of these tiny little elementals. And of course it was my job to take care of those. We take him down and continue moving on. And we get to what I believe is called the Trial of the Seven or something very similar to that. And this is where I start to kind of remember doing this dungeon in retail. I still can't put my finger on it. Either it was just whilst leveling or something else, I'm not sure. We then headed to the entrance of Molten Core to do the attunement quest. Because when this group said that they were going to do everything in the dungeon, they meant it. And it's a real shame that I never picked up the attunement to the core quest. We once again headed into an unfamiliar room, but I'm still not entirely sure what the deal was with this room. There was loads of these tiny mobs and we had to unlock a door or something, and every time I tried to sit and have a drink, mobs would spawn on top of me. We then take on the second to last boss of the dungeon, Magmas. Really, he's just some big magma guy. But across the entire room, there were loads of these little smaller golems spraying fire everywhere, which I just thought was pretty cool. Then, finally, we made it to the last boss, Emperor Dagran Thorisan. And you know what, I've definitely heard this name before. But we take him down pretty easily, and he dropped a nice robe for us, which is pretty cool. And with that, we had officially completed a full Blackrock Depths run, and it only took us an entire 2 hours. But you know, I think it was worth it for the experience. Plus, we got 4 pieces of pretty insane loot. Like, we really got gooped up this run. And you know, I think this might just be enough to take on Sunken Temple. I flew over to the Blasted Lands and eagerly made the long swim towards Sunken Temple. And you know, I thought getting into the dungeon would actually be a challenge in itself, but it was actually okay and we got in no problem. So I have done a solid amount of research on this farm, but really I was just needing to get a general idea of how the farm worked and the route, because usually with these types of things I end up finding my own weird way of doing it. So I start my first attempt by running through all of the mobs like I'm supposed to and jumping off of this balcony. And then we do what I think is called a clip jump, where you jump up onto, well, nothing, and as long as you aren't moving, then you can jump up onto the thing that you're hanging off of. And we will be using this a lot throughout the farm. And doing this is also a reset spot. We then follow along the wall until the very end where the 2 green dragon bosses are, and we aggro both of them and drag them to the main boss, Shade of Aranicus. And once you take damage on top of him, you will activate him and he will then call every single dragon in the dungeon to his position, and the 2 green dragons will drop aggro. At least that's what I thought. So I made the death run back and began my second attempt. Now usually when I'm learning some weird shenanigans, I can analyze what went wrong and try to improve or fix whatever issue I have. But I literally had no idea because I thought that I did it right. So really the only thing I could do was give it another go. So I once again aggroed the green dragons and dragged them on top of Aranicus and activated him. Only this time they actually did drop aggro like they're supposed to. So what went wrong on the first attempt, I really don't know. So now we actually get a little bit of downtime to drink and buff up whilst we wait for the dragons to stack nicely. We then aggro everything with a rank 1 blizzard and almost immediately start getting swarmed by mobs. So I blink away and get an ice barrier up whilst I run to the kill spot. spot. Once we're there, we once again use a clip jump to get on top of this side bit. Now the mobs will actually still hit us here, so we need to ice block whilst we wait for them to pass us. So the way this will work is that we will drop down from this ledge and the mobs will start to run back towards me, and I started with a rank 1 blizzard just to group them up. Now unlike the Zul'Farrak farm I did last week, this farm has a lot of casters, and that will constantly be firing poison at me. And I actually almost died on the first blizzard, so that was kind of the first major thing I learned. Always keep ice barrier up, no matter what. So I continued jumping up and down from this ledge for a solid 5 to 10 minutes before the mob started to die, and they awarded me with a very reasonable amount of XP, bringing me up to level 55. Now managing to do it on my second try, I just thought that this was going to be the easiest thing ever. Oh, how I could not have been more wrong. My next attempt, I did exactly the same as the last, and I even tried to group the mobs up early by sending a rank 1 blizzard whilst running to the kill spot. Learned pretty quickly not to do that. My fourth attempt, the dragons once again really didn't want to leave me alone. On my fifth attempt, we were actually successful, imagine that. And by that point, my gear was pretty messed up, so I headed back into Stoneman to repair, and I even bought myself a nice little ring that would simply give me an extra 18 nature resistance, which would help in dealing with the casters. I headed back into Sunken Temple, and holding a blizzard for too long resulted in almost instant death, so yeah, don't do that. I'm not even sure what caused this situation. Come around the 10th attempt or so, I forgot about my first rule of keeping ice barrier up at all times, which once again resulted in almost instant death. I continued trying for another hour or so, but there comes a point where your own stupidity becomes too much for even yourself to take, so I just thought that I would try again tomorrow. Logging on the next day, feeling refreshed and ready, I jumped straight into my first attempt of the day, and using the exact same strategy as before, our first run was actually a successful one, a good omen for what is about to come, mostly. Second run went even better than the last one, and we were almost halfway through level 55 already, and I even managed to do it for a third time in a row. And then the next hour or so would be filled with some good runs, but also a few deaths, like when I was distracted by whatever was on my other monitor and ended up getting slammed by the mobs through the wall, which honestly serves me right for being distracted, and dying because of holding blizzards for too long. Really just stupid things like that. A couple more hours of practice and we seemingly had the farm on lock, probably because as we level up it gets easier and easier, but I eventually started taking my time and actually thinking my plays through instead of rushing and going as quickly as I possibly can. Now the XP in general wasn't too crazy, neither was the gold, but towards the higher end of the 50s, level 59, 58, we were getting around 2 bars of XP per run, which isn't too bad considering we were able to clear it in about 10 minutes, and each level was taking just over 2 hours, which I suppose is crazy. I mean, on my warrior, level 59 to 60 took me 13 hours, so being able to level up in just a couple is just mind-blowing. So I continued to run the dungeon for the entire day, and eventually we got to level 60, and I can officially say that I have successfully leveled 2 entire characters in World of Warcraft Classic for the first time. Okay, so this part basically has nothing to do with the video itself, but I just had to show you this anyway. Obviously, after hitting level 60, I started to get some gear for my character, and decided to start with 5 quick arena runs to try and get the Banthok sash that I mentioned earlier. Run number 1, we got nothing. Run number 2, we got nothing. But on run number 3, we got nothing. Now on the 4th run, a certain orc decided to make an appearance, Prince. Are you kidding me? It takes me 150 runs to get Savage Gladiator Chain on my warrior, but I see it on my 4th run on my mage. But that was made up for, because on run number 5, we once again saw Orc Thor, and he did drop his Banthok Sash for us. Honestly, an insane first 5 arena runs. Hope you all enjoyed today's video, because I enjoyed making it. I always do. So for the next mage video, I plan on making a video about the 350 mob marauding pool. However, that's probably going to take a little while because that is proving to be a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. So we will be starting another character, and I'm kind of torn between either being a paladin or a druid. I want to do paladin obviously just so I can experience healing for the first time in World of Warcraft, including retail. I've never healed in retail either. We've also got Blackwing Lair coming out tomorrow, so we will be doing a fart and sniff video on that, so look forward to that as well, although I still need to get it tuned between now and then. But anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all later.